Awesome. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our MUNx Careers panel for World Monday. We're super lucky to have these awesome speakers with us this morning, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Atticus, feel free to go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name's Atticus, pronouns they, them. So I have just completed my undergrad at Western University at the Ivey Business School in Canada, where I focused mostly on sustainability and social enterprise. I really loved that. And currently, I am a master's student in Boulder, studying at Naropa University, my master's in clinical mental health counseling, specifically contemplative psychotherapy and Buddhist psychology. So I was born in Toronto. I've lived all my life in Canada. This is actually the first time I've spent any prolonged amount of time in the US, which has been really interesting. I'd say a big kind of learning takeaway, something that I've been working with is transition from an undergraduate business program to a extremely different master's program in the psychology / philosophy / spirituality realm. So kind of what I've been grappling with this is the question of identity and how fixed I am, and allowing myself to explore, and allowing myself to mold and shape as my career journey takes some big twists and changes. I've worked in the airline industry actually for a few years, and I spent about 5 months most recently working for a company called Mind Cure Health based out of Vancouver, and they're a company working in the realm of legal psychedelic therapy. So I was working on strategy for them. Lots of really, I was doing stuff all over the place, questions around budgeting, questions around M&A strategy. And that was also a really interesting, helpful transition from the business world into the psychology world, and even the spirituality and Buddhist side to my degree. MUN, probably the most important part of this. I've done MUN since grade 10. A lot of my MUN career has been alongside a debate career that I kind of stopped doing in university and really focused in on MUN itself. My favorite Mun Conference, definitely on the Canadian circuit, MIC-MUN at McGill University. Really just a really well orchestrated conference, really well done, and also a lot of fun. The best committee that I've ever been in on MUN was I'm an airplane nerd. So we had an ICAO committee in the ICAO building in Montreal, the International Civil Aviation Organization. And that was an absolute blast, having conversations about like transitioning from aviation regulation to space travel regulation and space weapons. It was a lot of fun. And I joined MUN originally because of my interest in global affairs, my interest in really a deep-rooted interest in having dialogue was probably the biggest reason that drew me to MUN and kept me going in MUN, even as I kind of transitioned to more of the conference operations side, running conferences at my university and supporting that. So that's a bit about my background, and I'm looking forward to talking with the rest of the panelists today.
Thanks, Atticus. I'm disappointed you didn't say WestMUN was your favorite conference, but I'll take McMUN, to be fair. Dimitri, if you want to go next.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Dimitri, he, him pronouns. I'm very excited to be here today to speaking with the rest of the panelists. It looks like I'm also the old head on the panel. I went to NYU and graduated in 2019 with a major in politics and a minor in public policy and management. But I'm actually currently working in sustainable finance, which on its I guess it's on its head doesn't seem like it would relate to my actual major, but I definitely was able to kind of leverage a lot of the similarities between the two for there. I've been working at a credit rating agency called S&P Global for the last 3 years, and I'm currently on again their sustainable finance team. So a really cool aspect of that is being able to look at SDGs and look at kind of these international climate or climate related taxonomies, and being able to look at the relative sustainability of organizations and sort of the corporate and private world. I grew up in New York and in New Jersey, and I ended up going to school in New York, and I currently live in Brooklyn, New York. So I guess I'm New York for most of my life until I die. So big fan of that of the city here. But I started MUN in similar to Atticus as they started in grade 10. I was pulled into a meeting by some of my friends, and I started to go after it for reasons that I really liked discourse. I mean, I'm a first-gen American, and so my parents, as immigrants, they've always informed me on the importance of global, just global awareness of issues that happen, and not just the U.S. where I was raised. And so MUN was a facet and an outlet that I could use to really kind of explore different perspectives of different countries and learn more just at its core. My favorite conference. So unlike some of the I guess the incredible people on this panel, I never actually went throughout the sort of the uni or college MUN circuit. I was more on the ops side. Never really, I guess, I don't know if I never really found those sort of the flavor for it. But my favorite conference that I helped organize, it's actually a conference that I've been going to for the last, I want to say, decade now. Just volunteering for. It's called Y MUN. It's based from the YMCA. It's really kind of a near and dear to my heart because it gave me a lot of guidance, and it was the whole reason why I decided to study. It was either politics or international relations. So I mean, I owe a lot to that organization and that conference. And within that actual conference, my favorite committee was the very first committee I was in. It was a GA subcom, or GA subcom legal B. I think it was representing the Republic of Iraq, and it was my first taste of, wow, this is really incredible people that do Model UN, and really incredible sort of conversations that occur within those halls. So I always kind of love reminiscing about why I joined MUN, and it definitely has helped sort of inform my understanding of what I do now, especially dealing with sort of sustainable finance. I mean, the market itself has over sort of $1 trillion in issuance, all related back to the SDGs in some sort of way. So my knowledge from MUN and in the kind of the goings of the organs were incredibly helpful in doing that. But I'm happy to be here, and I'm excited to speak with y'all further.
Thank you, Dimitri. Jill, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Jill Glack. I use she, her pronouns. I recently graduated from George Washington University with a double degree in political science and international affairs in December. And since then, I have started working at the Supreme Court as a marshal's aide since March, where I do support a lot of the operations of the court itself, the behind the scenes kind of work, which is really interesting. I get to see some really cool arguments. I get to have interaction with some really amazing people. And I also get to do some legal work as well. So that's been really fantastic. And MUN has definitely helped me with those skills and bringing those into federal government, which is great. My Model UN experience is very interesting. I like to call myself like a fake Model UNer because I only did Model UN myself for 2 years in high school. I was only a delegate for 2 years, and I only went to 2 conferences. But I really loved it. I knew like sophomore year that I wanted to do international affairs. Like when I discovered what it was, I was like, this is what I want to do with the rest of my life. I want to be talking about these world issues. I want to be able to experience dialogue, I guess, with people from around the world. And something about Model UN I absolutely loved. And since my freshman year of college, instead of being a delegate, I was never on the college circuit. I did more of the like operations and running conferences and training. I really focused my Model UN career on mentoring students. So I've had some really great experiences with Dimitri and Sharon at MUNers, working with putting the Mun Conference together in New York City, which was fantastic. It was a great experience. But I also I really got close with students and developed my mentoring and teaching skills through Best Delegate, where I started working as diplomacy fellow in person in, I think, 2019, where we were teaching students different grades and types, intermediate, beginner, crisis, in weekly programs all across the United States, different college campuses. And since then, I've continued to go back, and now I am the program manager for their online conferences, which happen every month. A little plug if you have students who are interested. Yeah, and then I also had some really great experiences teaching Model UN to some local DC Model UN teams, high school and middle school, which was also really fun. But yeah, I am so excited to be here today and to share what I've learned through Model UN with all of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, guys, for all the introductions. So we're probably going to start with the more generalized questions, and then we'll head into the more specific ones that we've collated from a bunch of high school, as well as junior, as well as I think first and second year students from across the world, literally everywhere. It was really exciting collecting all the questions and responses. Quick tidbit about me before I move on. My name's Sharon. I am a Master's of Global Affairs candidate at the Mun School of Global Affairs and Public Policy at the University of Toronto. Prior to that, I did my undergrad at Western University in London, Ontario, double major in medical science and political science. Decided I hated med school because of Model UN, added poli-sci because of Model UN, and then now I'm in global affairs. So in terms of general questions, I'll probably have all of you speak on each one, but feel free, like if you want to speak first, either raise your hand, or if I see your reaction to a particular question, I'll probably call on you first. First question, how has your Model UN network helped with your job searching / recruiting process, if at all? You can talk about mentors, coffee chats you've had, anything with regards to the recruiting process and jobs. I guess popcorn style, feel free to hop in. Otherwise, I will call on Dimitri first. I'm just doing rotation. You're closest.
Sure, no worries. Yeah, I like to think, and I think after everyone kind of leaves their Model UN sort of experience, there's a sense that the people there are just they're going to do great things. I feel like that's just such a given based off of the commitment and the drive that a lot of the sort of your peers have. I definitely I definitely had a great group of peers that wanted to sort of be successful, and their interests were incredible. So I mean, when it came down to it, while I'm currently in sustainable finance, and it doesn't have to technically do with international relations, the amount of peers that I have that are in my current job that have done Model UN in some sort of facet, whether that be the development of soft skills or really just showing that sort of global focus on issues that affects, well, global entities, I don't have enough fingers and toes to do so. They definitely have made sure that whenever you can kind of point out and suss out who's done Model UN based off of like the terminology they use or the certain creating sort of monikers for different proposals, right? With names for your resolutions. But all that to say is that in my career, being able to have peers in that have done Model UN, you can figure out like those who really have that global perspective. In an industry that I sort of work at, my team is based in APAC, EMEA, LATAM, and the US, and in North America, specifically the US. It's important to have that global perspective, and having peers that have done Model UN, I mean, it only helps in sort of it bonds us together, and it opens up our sort of the ability and capability to work with each other as a team.
Cool, awesome. Thanks for that insight. Atticus or Jill? All right, Atticus.
Yeah.
Jill, awesome.
Sorry. I can pop in there. I think something that's so cool about Model UN is that people who do Model UN just don't do international fairs, kind of like Dimitri was saying. Like, people do, Model UN is the thing that like connects us all, but you'll find people in Model UN, people in the medical field, in political science, in finance, like Dimitri, and counseling, I guess, like there's so many different things. So I think that's really great, is that while the majority might be like international affairs and political science, like obviously expanding your network in that is fantastic. But if you're not if you're not a political science person, Model UN can still help you. That network can still bring you somewhere, which is really nice. I also think just like the quality of a Model UN network is naturally just better because you're meeting so many different people from around the world. I know like things are different now with like online conferences and that kind of thing, but also online conferences can help connect you to people that you normally wouldn't have been connected with before. So you might not just have a network from the United States now, or Canada, or wherever you're from. You might have a network from people internationally. And it's just really cool to see what these people do with their lives, and it kind of helps you figure out if you are interested in a specific like international affairs or whatever. It helps you figure out what you can do with whatever you're studying. So I think it's like a good way for like personal growth, and everyone that I've always met from Model UN has always been super like helpful and supportive in helping you figure out what you want to do. So don't be afraid to like reach out to people via LinkedIn or stay in contact with people. I know with COVID and everything, you might have lost touch with a lot of your Model UN friends, but now's the time, like if you're looking for jobs and that kind of thing, to just go for it. People want to hear from you. They want to know what you're up to. So yeah.
Awesome. Thanks for that insight, Jill. And yeah, for sure. Like LinkedIn is how I got in touch with all of you. And I haven't spoken to y'all in years, but Model UN really did connects everyone. Like as Jill, you mentioned, engineering, finance, sustainability, everything has to do with some aspect of Model UN, whether it be communication or teamwork, everything really. Atticus, if you have anything to add?
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to jump in and add a fourth voice that says that there is such a diverse group of like interests and backgrounds of people that show up and do Model UN. So what I've found is, you might be in your degree program and you might have those people, you might have other friends at university, but what you get at Model UN is you get this diverse group of people from really different backgrounds. And something quite unique about Model UN, as I was just thinking about it, is you're really steeped in relationship with people, whether you're in a conference or whether you're on the secretariat or organizing side. You really are steeped in relationship with a group of people. At lots of other types of conferences, whether this is like, I don't know, like a career conference or like an industry conference or like a debate conference even, you're bouncing around between different groups of people. Whereas with Model UN, you've got your one committee that you're really steeped in. So you're able to create fairly strong relationships with people. And something that's also coming to mind for me, I mean, I didn't get to my degree program through people that I knew in Model UN, but when I'm thinking back to my time at business school, we were actually taught, like we received probably 30 to 45 minutes of instruction about how to break into a networking circle, okay? And literally, how do you walk into a group of people that are talking amongst each other and join in? And Model UN teaches you this like from day one. There wasn't really any instruction that the kids who did Model UN really needed to receive on this. So I think that there's very broad skills there about relating to different people, about even very subtle social interactions that really help you with Model UN. And to give an example of like a way that my network has been used, yesterday, actually, one of my good friends at Model UN from Model UN who was on the secretariat with me for a really long time, who works in the airline industry, reached out to me and asked if I have any interesting leads or opportunities. And I actually did. So that's a point on this real diversity of background and diversity of relationship, and also a testament to kind of the strength of bonds that can be created through being steeped in groups with people that are doing really interesting, sometimes intensive work.
Awesome. Thank you, Atticus. So moving on to the second question, on like a more personal level, how has Model UN influenced your career decisions? You guys briefly touched upon it, but if you want to go into a little bit more detail. Atticus, I like that very aggressive head nod. If you want to speak first.
Yeah, sure. I've been thinking about this quite a bit actually during my transition. Model UN really, for me, was focused on this instinct of like, how do we solve problems? How do we solve problems in the world? And I think that's really the core that at least brought me to Model UN, and I think a lot of other delegates to Model UN. This interest, but under the interest, there's a caring. And what's been really interesting for me has been to explore through business school and through Model UN, a lot through Model UN, how I personally want to make change in the world and what change looks like and what impact looks like to me. And I think there are a lot of different levels of impact that one can have. But I remember sitting, watching a committee that at a conference that I ran, and asking myself kind of the question like, yeah, they can make this fix, but what if it falls apart because people aren't able to take on this change? And that was actually, as I reflect, part of the turning point for me. I was already kind of on a journey where I kind of thought that my impact would be more on the individual change side. Whereas when I entered Model UN, I was really like, I'm personally going to come up with the solution to the climate crisis. So that kind of realization for me was a big turning point in where I wanted to take my life and what direction looked like for me. And as I said, what impact looked like, and really shaped my view of individual change to catalyze societal change, and supporting people that are making big change and leading movements. Because I could also see how much work it was for people just in Model UN to come up with this change and do this work personally. So that's kind of my 2 cents about the impact that it's had, and it's actually been quite strong and quite profound for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Atticus. Jill or Dimitri, feel free to hop right in.
Sure. I'm just starting out my career. I am in my first 8 months into my first professional job ever. So I definitely think the most important thing for me that I've gained throughout Model UN for my job right now are the skills, the translatable skills from Model UN into my personal career, like communication, team building, problem solving, thinking on your feet, creativity. All these things can be applied into whatever job that you want to go into. And it's a really great thing to bring up during interviews, just an FYI, and definitely has helped me throughout the job search process, was the skills that I learned from Model UN. No matter if you were a delegate or if you were training people or if you were putting together conferences, each of those have a specific set of skills that you can bring into whatever you decide to do. Though I'm kind of I'm at the Supreme Court right now in the federal government legal field, I still have a very deep personal interest in diplomacy and foreign service. So those are my 10, 15-year goals, is to somehow get there. But I am still super interested in returning to that world of and I know Model UN, you have so many different issues that you talk about and committees. But for me, I'm still super interested in like conflict resolution, United States affairs with other countries. So I'm hoping to do that in the future and go back to my master's in a few years. But yeah, I guess just those skills you can bring wherever you want to. I think it's good to like prepare yourself if you're doing like the job search interview process. Think about like your Model UN, what you've done in Model UN, come up with like a set of skills and see if you can expand upon them and just do some interview prep that way. And it's an easy way to kind of quantify and solidify your experiences to whoever's hiring and that kind of thing.
Awesome, Jill.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Do you, Sharon, do you mind if I just add a little bit?
Oh, no,
to
no,
that?
go for it.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think what Jill mentioned about being able to leverage your experiences and talking about working in a team and those soft skills are incredibly important in the job market. I definitely use it literally every day, every working day, hopefully not the weekends. But what I wanted to bring up was kind of this, I guess, the bread to that sandwich there is that I think one thing that I get or that we might take for granted is the actual sheer knowledge that we get from writing these position papers. I'm again, in the finance industry, many people think it's quite binary, just ones and zeros. But right now on my team, I have members that are sort of in EMEA that are currently at COP26 right now. And the mere fact that I can talk about the Conference of Parties and different UN organs and actually know at its core level these issues that have been talked about for almost, ad nauseum for decades, it's an immediate asset, and it helps me really get to bond and develop my career because of that base knowledge I got from going to a club after school for an hour or two just to go to another conference. The other aspect of it is I'd also say it's the first there's the knowledge aspect of it, and then there's also, like, just on the top of my head, I just forgot it, but I think that one thing that MUN really helps in sort of in my career is, yeah, that was it. It's the moral aspect of it. I think inherently people that work, that go, that operate, that help organize MUN, there's a sense of global citizenship. There's a greater collective, a higher purpose in terms, and it may not always be the same. Maybe I'm speaking in generalities, but I know for me, a lot of my moral compass was forged in the battlefield that was a MUN conference, and understanding what it means to have collective development and civil discourse, and that has always been a common thread throughout. And I'm very proud of myself for sticking to that. I mean, you don't always hear about kind of morals and ethics in finance, but I think something that I am always very proud of is that my upbringing, and a big part of that being in MUN, is something that always sort of feeds through and is always prevalent in the decisions that I make on the day to day.
Awesome. Yeah, those three responses were fantastic. Hopefully the students find them super helpful. So moving on, you guys have all kind of touched on this in the last question as well, but more specifically, like, how has Model UN set yourself apart from people in your current careers or where you want to be? Jill, I guess if you want to go first this time.
Sure. I think for me, specifically, my Model UN experience had a lot to do with organizing conferences, leading teams, and doing a lot of like the preparation work for conferences. And I think for my job specifically in government, that was super important, where I actually had like the skills already to come into the job. Although like I didn't have any legal background, a lot of like the people that I work with now like had internships at the court. I was not that person. I did not have internships. I had no legal experience whatsoever. But the Model UN experience that I did have really set me apart. And I want to say it again, it's about how you portray those skills and how you talk about them. That's the most important, because everyone has these skills, but you need to be able to explain to them to someone who's interviewing you. But yeah, for me, it was definitely those like operation skills. I also think, and like my job specifically, there's a lot of things that come up on the fly, a lot of issues that arise that you need to solve immediately. And like Model UN, you do that all the time. Whether you're a delegate or whether you're organizing conferences, you know, if you're especially like a crisis person, you get thrown these issues and you have to be able to keep your composure, work alongside your teammates, but also like come up with some sort of solution creatively. And I think that skill in itself, as a delegate, and then as like someone who's running conferences, you know, something goes horribly wrong and you're the USG, and your director's having a really rough time in running a committee. Like you have to, those on the fly flexibility skills have been super helpful for me, specifically at the court and within government. So no matter what you're doing in Model UN, whether you're a delegate, you're just starting out, or you're, I don't know, super experienced and you're on the college circuit, that has been a very important aspect for me in my work at the court. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Either of you, if you guys want to just popcorn style hop in.
I was cackling to myself listening to you speak, Jill, because I was just thinking about all the scenarios of committees and conferences that I've ran where I've had to think on my feet and come up with immediate solutions to issues that I never could have dreamed in a million years would have appeared at a conference. I think I've done this multiple times. I want to reiterate the importance that everyone has said here of really extracting skills from your Model UN experience and articulating those in a really processable way on your resume or in an interview, because a lot of people will see Model UN and be like, what's that? Are you pretending to? And it's like, no, there's actually a lot here that we can pull out. So I've done this as I was working for airlines. I've done this as I was applying to grad school. And right now I'm doing this in a very different way as I apply to internship and practicum sites in the counseling field. So I'm taking the same experiences and I'm extracting different things from them because they're so rich and there's so much there. I think the listening ability that you receive in Model UN, and a lot of this is really interesting because a lot of this I find you can receive on the organizing secretariat side and you can receive in the conference room. But to be a good leader or to be a good Model UN delegate, there's a lot of listening that has to happen. There's a lot of bridge building that you end up doing. So you have to not only listen, but you have to understand where people are coming from, what's going on and what they need, and also what you can do and how you can help. So there's a self-awareness piece there in addition to the listening, which good Model UN delegates have. And I'm sure many people have had experience with delegates who don't necessarily have this piece. And you might, there are different names that people might call these kinds of delegates, but then they might, change their mind or try to force something on you that you really have no interest in. So that's a really important piece there. Also, you end up finding your voice, or I end up finding my voice in Model UN when I object to something, when I have something to say, whether that's in groups, whether that's when I'm leading a conference, whether that's with my team. It's really an environment where I think that's encouraged, and that's one of the biggest things that I've found in Model UN. And as Jill said, the problem solving, the immediate creativity. A lot of people, when they think of Model UN, creativity might not come to mind. This immediate fixing problems might not come to mind. They might think it's just big picture. But no, there's a lot of that involved, I found, which is applicable to all different kinds of environments and very applicable to what I'm doing now. And I'd say the most relevant thing, which I touched on before with being in relationship to my current situation, is navigating complex group dynamics. I have a literal class called small group where all we do is we sit in a circle and we discuss what's going on for us right now. And we discuss the dynamics that are emerging inside of our group as we talk about what happens to us. And it's trying to prepare us to lead group therapy. But the point is, we really, really are doing things that I feel like I've done before as I explore group dynamics, again, whether that's within the secretariat or whether that's within the conference and committee room. There's so much value in there. And I really just, anyone who's listening, really, really encourage you to dive into that, extract some skills and build on that for whatever you're doing, because there is material there.
Awesome. Yeah, Dimitri, all you.
I mean, I can't add much. I mean, I think Atticus and Jill really set the sort of the plate as to what different options you can really sort of chew on in terms of what is a differentiator and how people in Model UN can differentiate themselves. I'd only add that I think that all these global complex issues that Atticus was describing, they happen in like the workplace. It's funny to say that, but whether you have a difficult delegate who just won't budge on a particular part of a resolution, well, that might be the same thing as a project management in the corporate work office with a particular stakeholder who doesn't want to particularly move or on a particular item of the project that you're doing. I like to think that at the end of one of the end goals of Model UN is to deliver a resolution, to get something done. And I like to think that the project management aspect of that just goes entirely is entirely transferable to the professional world. I like to think that I can get things done, and the reason why is because dealing with different stakeholders, being creative, as like Atticus and Jill have mentioned, that problem solving complex is definitely something that's utilized every single day, if not multiple times a day in the workforce. So I think the differentiator there is that people in Model UN have been doing it for years ahead of their peers. And that's something that is always a leg up in terms of sort of the corporate community.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So now we're going to move into less, I guess, big picture stuff, more very specific job related questions. So one of the questions that I got multiple times, honestly, was what was the recruiting process been like for your particular job that you're currently at, or your particular program if you're in grad school like myself? So walk us through, like, even if it's someone, hiring you because y'all met for coffee and they liked you, like go through that, run us through all the tea. We want all the details. I guess, Jill, if you want to go first again, you look very excited.
So my job search process was very interesting. I graduated early in December, so I started looking for jobs around this time last year. And I was applying to everything under the sun that had something to do with political science, international affairs. And the job market was really interesting last year, where there wasn't that many options because of COVID. But for me, I definitely utilized a lot of the resources my school offered. So like we used Handshake was our big like job search thing, which was great. But also the career services office had like so many great things to help you if you're doing if you're looking to consulting work, to do like case interviews and that kind of thing. Like you can do all those practice things, make use of it. Go to resume workshops, make an appointment to look at your resume, because it really does help. You might think that your resume is great, but trust me, go to someone at your school. They'll find something wrong with it and you'll fix it and it'll be so much better. But definitely take the time to work on those skills and practice. That was very helpful for me. Specifically with my job, it was kind of random. I was just on USA Jobs, and USA Jobs is the network for all US federal government jobs. And on USA Jobs, the resume is a little bit different than what you would normally submit. So you have to include the dates that you worked and the hours per week and that kind of stuff. So it's a little bit different than a regular resume. So if you're looking for jobs in the federal government, Make sure you have a separate federal resume than your other ones that you send out to other places. I always include cover letters. Every job I submitted, I tried to include a cover letter. I know many times they don't look at them, but if you're able to kind of relate your experiences to a job specifically, use those keywords like in the job description, in your cover letter, your application is more likely to go through, be on the top of someone's desk because it meets those keywords. Like sometimes they just filter out different applications based on what words are in your resume and in your cover letter. If you're applying to jobs that have a huge, like a large amount of applicants. So I was just on USA Jobs and I was looking at jobs for like recent graduates, and I saw one at the court and I was like, oh, this would be cool. And I just submitted an application very quickly. I had like a cover letter like kind of already set up. I just kind of switched out some sentences and submitted it. And kind of forgot about the job, to be honest. I was applying to other places, you know, I was like, there's no way I'm going to get this job. Like, kind of forgot about it. And then like 4 months later, government takes a while, just an FYI, if you're applying to government jobs, expect not to hear back immediately. And then in February, I got a call from someone in HR and they were like, hey, you want to come in for an interview? Are you still interested? And I was like, yes, I don't have a job. Yes. So yeah, I went in for an interview and then a couple weeks later, I got hired. So each government agency is different. They might have several rounds of interviews. For mine, it was just one, but they filter out the applications first. So really try to make sure that you stand out somehow in your cover letter, in your resume, because government jobs will get a lot of applicants, and they will automatically filter out people that they think don't fit based on what materials that you've provided. So yeah, mine was really random. I was interviewing at other places too, and then the court just happened to work out. So some things just may be super unexpected in the job search, but definitely expect it to take a little bit longer if you're looking for federal government jobs, and especially if you're looking at jobs that require security clearance.
Awesome. Dimitri, if you want to pop in.
Yeah. So I think I kind of reflect on this process a lot because it was a little bit of a whirlwind. Like I mentioned, I studied politics at New York University, NYU. And I got bored of it. To be perfectly honest, I got bored of sort of game theory every single day. And NYU is a really wonderful business school at Stern, and most of my friends were in Stern. So I was like, let's try this finance shtick out. And so I pivoting kind of mid-college career, I was one of those kids that had like a 10-year timeline planned out and it was not conforming to it. So I definitely had to put in the extra work, whether that be like self-studying like Friday nights with a textbook from one of my friends or anything like that, just to understand the knowledge of kind of like the finance industry. And then with finance in the United States, we do a lot of sort of on-campus recruitment where you utilize or different firms will come onto the campus and you have that time where you can make a quick pitch or try to get your resume into somebody's hands. And I was able to do quite well with that based off the preparation that I had done, because it was something that I wanted to learn. And honestly, being a Model UN person, that probably helped out because I could read a bunch of stuff in a very short amount of time and come up with something on the spot. And so through that, I ended up getting a number of offers in sort of consulting and investment banking and at sort of at S&P. And I took sort of my current role in a rotational program. And a lot of people were asking why, because I mean, consulting and IB in the States, those are kind of some high net worth options. And what I'm currently doing certainly doesn't make kind of the figures that some of my peers are doing. But the reason why I did it is because I want to learn. For me, always learning is really important. And so part of my process of getting to where I was finding out where I could grow the most in my career and where I could really start to define and take ownership over issues that I wanted to be an authority on. And so what's so cool is that now I get to reflect upon being on the sustainable finance team. ESG, environmental, social governance, is a huge thing within the business community right now. And it really is kind of being pushed by the awareness of climate change. And if it weren't for me being at this company in this position, there's no way that I would be able to have the actual opportunity to get this position. And it really became because I wanted to understand what it meant to learn more about this particular field. So I think the original question was, how did I end up getting this job? But it really was because I, one, took the time to understand and do my homework and prepare, but I also kept and continued to have a intellectual curiosity in terms of different spaces that some people may not have seen as the sort of sure bet, but it was something that I thought that I could grow the most in. And so that really sort of guided me into just defining where I wanted to go. And thankful enough, I'm happy to say that I actually like what I do. But I think my colleagues are wonderful, and we all push each other to be better. And I am hard pressed to think that is an opportunity that most people have. I think it's quite rare.
Oh, whoops. Realize I was muted. Super insightful. Thank you. And Atticus.
I'll give you a number of examples. I mean, I'll start with grad school. The process of applying to grad school, I was lucky. My program really doesn't believe in standardized testing. So there was no way that they were going to make us do the GRE for Buddhist psychology. But for me, that process really looked like, first, I really had to understand what I was getting. And frankly, when that wasn't the easiest in a tiny little university. But I think actually Model UN, with kind of what Dimitri touched on, this like ability to kind of search for information and figure things out fairly quickly, really helped me. So I really understood what I was actually interested in and what they were actually offering. And it's the hardest. It's this program gets a ton of applicants, surprisingly, at our little university. So for me, it really, the most important part was that searching process, that understanding process, that what am I getting into process, like researching for a position paper, but really going broad with that research. And it looked operationally like, writing an essay. It looked like getting your letters of reference and going in for an interview, which was just like a therapy session, frankly. But so that's basically an overview of grad school. But the way in the essay, I definitely spoke about Model UN for the reasons that I mentioned before, because of all the skills that I was able to pull out. And in terms of other jobs that I've gotten, I've never actually succeeded, unlike Jill, in getting a job through like an online portal or an online like bank. That's never worked for me. I got my airline job by cold emailing the COO in first year. And then later on, when I was working there in the board meeting, the whole board got told about how nice the email was. So communication there, really helpful. This kind of, I don't want to call it a go-getter attitude, but that's all that's coming to mind right now. It was definitely like that confidence was definitely built up through MUN. There's no question about that. But also this was in first year. I really had no experience in first year to be doing the kinds of things they had me doing at the airline. In that interview, I used MUN all the time in my experience. And I remember this mental voice that's come up in interviews since, and in that interview, you should bring in other experiences other than MUN. They don't only want to hear about MUN, but the point is there's so much diversity there that I was able to bring in. And that was really helpful. And I think what that showed them was, frankly, kind of a maturity. This is what I was reflected on, and this is what I was told by my boss. Kind of a maturity aspect was brought in there. The global perspective is really helpful and was really helpful with airlines, and really also an understanding and an interest in the regulatory aspect. That's really big. we talk about regulation a lot in MUN. We create sometimes, depending on your committee, regulation in MUN. We understand regulation through working in MUN. And that was really massive. And lastly, my job at the psychedelics company, MindCure, my career services department just emailed me and said, Atticus, you might be interested in this job. They need someone very quickly. And then I had a quick call, which I thought would be with someone in HR. And then I realized it was with the CEO while I was driving to see my sister at university. And that was that. And then they're like, you want to start in 4 days? I'm like, okay. So the job search process can really be all over the place, is kind of the point there. But MUN, as I said, can really show maturity, and it can show global view, and you can pull that out, and you don't have to make it the focus of what you're talking about, but you can drop it in. And as long as you frame it in a way that conveys what you're trying to convey, it can be crazy helpful.
For sure, that was super helpful. Yeah, like me personally as well, MUN didn't directly help me with these applications, but people I met through MUN helped guide me through at least my grad school application process quite a bit. So buddy named June. So I was applying for Monk School of Global Affairs. My GPA is redonkulous. Like it is in the ground, like 2.6 or 2.7, I think cumulative is my GPA. But my third and fourth year, I got, mid 80s, high 80s, whatever. Applying to U of T, University of Toronto, at least in Canada, is somewhat prestigious and hard to get into. So I was stressed. I was very, very stressed out. And it was actually really surprising because I have, I think, 3 or 4 Model UN friends that came out of this program. So I reached out to them. I was like, hey, I have no idea how to write this letter. They ended up advising me to write a special circumstance letter, which is what I think got me into the program. I essentially went, I hate med school, family, tough times, et cetera, et cetera. And it worked out really, really well. In terms of job searching, I unfortunately didn't find an internship last summer, super demoralizing, a different story for a different time. But the year before, I was at the US consulate in Toronto, which I did actually find through a UN buddy, and they helped me with my references, which worked out really well. Model UN is just such a small community, and especially if you're on the North American circuit, everyone kind of is mutual friends, or it's a friend of a friend, or even if you look on LinkedIn through like the second circle, whatever connections, you'll always see people pop up. It's super, super interesting. And last question before I let y'all hop off is, what do you wish you could have told yourself when you first started Model UN? Super, super open brain question. Yeah. But yeah, I guess we'll go alphabetical for the last one. Sorry, Atticus. But yeah, any thoughts, opinions, things to share?
Yeah. Give me a second to reflect here. I think little Atticus could have I think starting off, I took a very individualistic approach to Model UN back in high school at the beginning. And I think it worked for a period of time. But the kind of downside was that I wasn't really fully engaged in getting to know the people around me and the people that were at the conference. Not only during the conference, but particularly like outside of conference hours. That did change in university. But I think that would probably have been the biggest piece of advice there, that you're with a really interesting group of people most of the time. Although they may have different backgrounds, there's a shared common interest. And getting to know those people outside, we've kind of, everyone here has talked a lot about the importance of connections and the value that connections bring. And yeah, in high school, I really didn't see that. I figured it out in university, which was great, but that was one of the biggest ones. And another one was that originally I shunned the idea of operating conferences. At first, I was like, no, I'm a delegate. That's really what I want to do. I joined the secretariat in first year of university because I wanted to be more, frankly, I wanted to understand conferences so I could have a better time at the conferences I went to. But I really discovered a passion for operating conferences and that side of Model UN. And that's been so immensely rewarding. I've loved that so much. And that's really where I've met people that I've really come close to. So yeah, exploring relationship with people. And number two is not to shy away from one side of Model UN if you have the opportunity to explore it.
Thank you, Atticus, as always. Dimitri?
Yeah, I hope it doesn't come off as super corny, because it definitely is going to sound like it. But I would tell little Dimitri that I just to have more fun. I think I was just such a stress ball during conference, and everything, like, don't get me wrong, like it was really nice to sort of get the accolades, to get the gavels, and those are wonderful. Or to make sure on the ops side, making sure a conference goes beginning to the end, and if no one knew about any problems, that means you did a great job. And that's, I think,
the NISMA mentality.
Exactly. No, certainly. Yeah, conference director for NISMA definitely taught me that. But I think during the time, being more present in the moment and just having more fun. I feel like during those times, you get so sort of caught up with what's going to be the end state than being in the present moment and realizing the sheer phenomena that is around you, that over hundreds of people around you from different places and different backgrounds have come together to discuss topics that will define generations for fun, for fun. Like that is such an incredible thing that, as I've seen in kind of the sort of professional world and I guess adulting, it's rare. You don't always see those communities come together. And so to really enjoy the people around you and the time that you're having, I definitely would tell myself to bask in that moment just a little bit longer than what I did.
Thank you, Dimitri. And Jill?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go back to like my introduction. I said it was like a fake Model UN delegate because I really was. And if I could tell myself one thing, because I only did like 2 conferences as a delegate, my biggest piece of advice for myself would just be, just go for it. I was so terrified. I mean, Sharon and Dimitri, you guys know Isman, like my first committee was Stockholm with 400 people. And I was like, this is not what I was expecting at all. I was absolutely overwhelmed, which is fine. And it's kind of amazing to think about like how scary my first Model UN experience was, to like literally be working in Model UN for 5 years now, you know? I would say the best way to improve at Model UN is to just try and just participate. And it does bad, your speeches, maybe you say a lot of filler words, who cares? As long as you're going up and you're putting yourself out there and you're exuding some sense of confidence, that will get you somewhere, and you will learn every time from that. You may be freaking out on the inside, but putting in that effort is how you're going to get more out of Model UN. You're not going to get much out of it if you're just quiet the entire time you're sitting in the back. You know, listening is super important, definitely, but to get the most out of Model UN, just get involved. And I wish I had like kind of gotten over that, but I had really scary first experience. But definitely putting yourself out there to get the full set of skills that you can out of Model UN would have really helped me in my first couple of years in the Model UN world.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for joining us this morning for World Monday. And again, thank you so much to our speakers, our wonderful speakers, for taking the time out of their day.